You cannot use weakness as a weapon. It's the only one I've got. Why should I yield, then? Not yield. Bargain. Deal with me in weakness, or one day you'll have to bargain with someone in a position of strength. The world changes. The desire and goal to become stronger is almost as ubiquitous as pointy hair when it comes to shonen protagonists or shonen-inspired protagonists. You see it as many places as Dragon Ball Z to Attack on Titan, from Hunter x Hunter to Jujutsu Kaisen, from Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon to Iruma at Demon High School. And this is not without good reason. Characters that are able to get better at something they like in order to overcome adversity and fight evil or the problems of their world make for inspiring storytelling and characters people want to emulate, especially for young people who have their hearts set upon a future dream or goal they want to achieve. Whether it's Luffy's passion to be able to rally against the injustices of his society and make meaningful change, Deku's desire to be able to achieve his lifelong dream through hard work and determination, or even Goku's desire to become better at fighting simply because he loves the art of fighting and will love it more the better he becomes at it. This desire to become stronger is very good at demonstrating virtues that are worthy of emulating. And I don't want to speak ill of this. But, and you knew there was a but coming, in some cases, in these very stories even, weakness can be more powerful than strength. Now, you might be thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? That's a complete contradiction. And you're not entirely wrong, but let me give you an example to illustrate what I'm talking about. In fact, I have 3. The power of negativity. I'm already negative is, to date, one of my favorite scenes from One Piece. I have watched the show since I was 10, and I have cheered many, many times when Luffy, through strength of will and body, overcomes his limits to punch a stuck-up autocrat or black-hearted pirate in the face repeatedly until he blacks out. But this scene somehow shines above almost all of those others in my memory because it was in this scene where the weakest member of the cast discovered that because of his weakness, he had a weapon not even the strongest of the crew had. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's give a little context. In the arc Thriller Bark, one of the antagonist minions, called Perona, unleashes a negative attack against the crew. She creates ghosts from her body, which, when they pass through people, temporarily strips them of all sense of confidence and self-worth, basically sending them into a state of depression. Physically, this leaves people unharmed, but using this ability, she is able to take out the strongest members of the Straw Hats. Even Luffy himself is brought low by this, and the Straw Hats are defeated and forced to regroup. When they do make another attack against the big bad, Perona's attacks almost defeats them again, only this time, Usopp is there. Quick summary of Usopp's character for those who don't know. Usopp is the Straw Hat's sniper. He is an expert marksman who, if given the choice, chooses to fight his enemies from far, far away. If given this distance and time to prepare, he can defend himself quite well. But the show rarely gives him this opportunity. If forced into a direct confrontation, he will either survive by trickery and deception, or, as is more often the case, run away and or get beaten up. Honestly, he probably gets beaten up more than any other member of the cast. Correspondingly, he is known for being a liar and a coward. Don't get me wrong, he's a good guy underneath it all. He'll stand by his friends through thick and thin. He is driven by a sense of justice, but he is also arguably the weakest of their number. But, in this instance, when Perona's ghosts pass through him, he is able to stand firm when everyone else falls helpless to the floor. When asked how this is possible, he replies, どんな手も何も俺は元から
Negative だ!
This baffles the imagination. How can he fight without any confidence in his ability to succeed or any sense of self-worth? Well, the same way he's fought every battle of his entire life. Unlike most of the crew, Usopp is not fearless, which has led people to think he is a coward, but he is, in fact, brave. Luffy is willing to die for the pursuit of his dream, and because of that, he is not afraid of death. Also, Luffy is filled with confidence in his own abilities to accomplish what he wants. Because of that, when he is deprived of his confidence and forced to face fear, he is helpless. In contrast, Usopp has been terrified of every danger they have ever come across in their journey, and is not willing to die. But because of that, he knows how to stand strong even when absolutely terrified. Usopp is a liar. He knows how to bluff with no cards, to act like he knows what he's doing even when he doesn't, to make time for an opportunity to present itself. He cannot overcome his enemies through strengths, but he is not helpless. His weakness is his greatest source of strength. The power of humility. That was an example where the power of inability in some things leads a character to unexpectedly be very capable in others in order to make up for it. This is one way in which weakness is a powerful tool, but there are others. Weakness can be a powerful personal tool as a motivator, but it is perhaps more powerful as a social tool. In My Hero Academia, between two more dramatic and action-focused arcs of the story, there is an episode where the teachers of the school of would-be superheroes go around to the families of their students in order to request from their parents that the students move to a dormitory to better protect them from villain attacks. It is initially a very light-hearted episode. We are introduced to the families of most of the main cast, and antics ensue as straight-laced teachers are confronted with wacky characters. Nevertheless, the teachers achieve their goal with less difficulty than they anticipated. Drama occurs, however, when the protagonist's mother unexpectedly refuses the teacher's request, and says that in order to save her son from more attacks, she is going to move him to a less prestigious hero school where he will not be a target. Given that the entire narrative rests upon this school and the characters within it, this threat has the potential to completely disrupt the story. It also comes completely from left field, as the entire focus of the narrative thus far has been preparing and combating attacks from the outside, the aforesaid villains. Thus, this comes almost out of the blue and is based on concerns that, while simmering in the background, had not been given focus by the narrative. What is a greater reason for surprise is that Deku's mother is a soft-spoken, mild-mannered housewife who cares deeply for her son's happiness. By doing this, she is depriving her son of one of his tremendous sources of joy, the ability to be taught by his hero and idol, All Might, and in doing so has to stand up to that man himself, one of the most famous and powerful men in their society. However, her courage here is well-founded, for All Might, whose name literally means all-powerful, is here helpless to accomplish his goal. Deku, who would be one of his best bargaining tools in this situation, unexpectedly sides with his mother, saying that if it alleviates her worries, he will go to another school. So long as he can become a hero, he will make that sacrifice like he has made so many others. What is more, Deku's mom is entirely right in her assessment. As part of AU, Deku is in danger and would be safer going to another school in which he can still accomplish his dream. That Deku has become almost a surrogate son for All Might and is linked to him through the power of All for One are things that he cannot really bring up and that All Might cannot really tell Deku's mother. All Might has no cards to play, and rather than make some grand argument for why he and he alone is the best teacher for Deku, instead he chooses to humble himself. One of the most powerful men in the world, the greatest of all heroes, beloved by all of Japan and nowhere more so than in this household, prostrates himself on the floor before this humble woman. Paradoxical though it may seem, having power and not using it is an immensely powerful move. All the more so when it is done with sincerity. By putting himself beneath her, all that weight of status, respect, and responsibility is put onto her shoulders. More than any other hero, All Might has built himself into a symbol. It is safe to walk the streets so long as I am here. In humbling himself, it is that symbol that is brought low. As much as people often crave power, to have it suddenly thrust upon you is always a terrifying prospect. It forces you to think beyond your own initial wants and desires, to see yourself as part of a much bigger picture. By humbling himself before Inko Midoriya, All Might gives her a tremendous amount of power. For she cannot bring herself to humiliate her son's childhood hero. The power of mercy. The reason that the last example worked was because the two opponents were of radically different levels of power, prestige, and responsibility, so that the more powerful one, humbling themselves before the weaker, terrified them with the enormity of the concession. But unlike with Usopp's strength of negativity, All Might's strength of humility is reliant on him having the pride and power to give up. What if you are genuinely in a position of helplessness, against an opponent that has no respect for you at all? What can you appeal to then? So there are a lot of examples I could have used from Hunter x Hunter, such that I could probably have made this whole video out of them, but I wanted to include a number of scenes from across shonen media, and the other examples from Hunter x Hunter touch on themes we've already discussed. So please be content with this one, which I think does something we haven't seen yet, and know that I am familiar with the other examples. I am, of course, talking about Gon not fighting Pitto. We're all familiar with the delayed shonen battle, right? A shonen anime or manga sets up a conflict between a protagonist and a powerful enemy, which is destined to be resolved in an epic battle of cosmic significance. But to avoid being repetitive, and in order to make sure you keep watching over the 55-episode arc, it delays the battle for as long as possible. That's why most of Dragon Ball feels like it's spent waiting for Goku to show up. Depending on how well it's done, it can either build excitement or be deeply frustrating. Or both. Hunter x Hunter is no exception to this. In the Chimera Ant arc, the show establishes a conflict between Gon and Pitto, when she brutally attacks his mentor, leading Gon to try to rescue him at all costs. But between this event and when the characters next see each other again are 31 episodes of training arcs, tests of strength, world building, failing those tests of strength, other characters fighting the ants, internal conflict among the ants, board games, other character arcs, and a carefully planned out infiltration of the enemy's headquarters, before finally these characters are in the same room again. It is honestly a very good story, but it is also a very frustrating wait. So, when it finally looks like this fight is about to happen, why am I pleading with Gon to stop? Why am I desperately begging for Gon to wait just a little bit longer? Please. Oh, did I forget to mention the injured girl? To make a long story very short, Komungi is a master Gunji player, who the King of Ants kept around to entertain him while he prepared to take over the world. Over time, he fell in love with her. She is a deeply lovable character who the audience cannot help but fall for over those 31 episodes. And more to the point, she is an innocent who was caught in the crossfire when our heroes attacked the enemy fortress. The king ordered Pitto to use her power to save Komungi. She needs an extensive operation, and it takes all of her power to do this. Pitto cannot defend herself without sacrificing the life of the person her leader cares about most. Powerful though she is, in this situation she is helpless. But that weakness is itself a weapon. Consumed with rage as he is, Gon is willing to kill both of them in cold blood, even as his best friend tries to talk sense into him. That is, until Pitto breaks her own arm. She offers to break any part of her body not required for the healing. This act of submission, of weakness and surrender, is what persuades Gon. He agrees to give her time. It is not easy for him to make this concession. His determination, an admirable quality in many shonen protagonists, has made him into an almost merciless force of violence. So much so that it almost made him lose track of his original goal. Almost, but not quite. At the end of the day, he cannot bring himself to be that kind of monster that would take advantage of the completely helpless. By allowing herself to be helpless, not to fight, but to surrender completely, Pitto has accomplished what she could not have been able to through strength. If you've watched anime for a while, at some point you've probably come across a show with a title along the lines of, "My weakest skill is actually the strongest." It feels like there's at least one of these every season these days. They're usually terrible, and I strongly discourage you from watching them. But part of the reason I think people keep writing these terrible stories is that they are driven to find that kernel of value and worth within perceived weakness. Where these shows fail is that they try to find this by means of some clever trick or loophole. The real answer is much simpler than that. The ability to make oneself vulnerable, when you have the option not to, is a profoundly brave and powerful thing to do. Even if this does not sway one's opponent, the courage and resilience it takes to do this develops skills that no success could ever achieve. Now, this may sound trite and sentimental, but it's important to remember that the world is a messy place. Life is not like a video game or mathematical equation where the person with the bigger number always wins. Circumstances can make even the strongest helpless before a weaker foe. Therefore, it is important to know the power of weakness, for one day you will inevitably need it.